good thing. Comic books, yeah, touch on social issues. That's
Good writing and production allows
Yeah.
you to get away with anything. If
Yep.
it's crap production with sucky writing, then no, I'm not in favor of it. But
I mean, if you look at all the cartoons, I mean, Yosemite Sam from Bugs Bunny, that was all social issues. That's when cartoons originally were made for adults.
Yeah, they were made for
That's
adults.
social issues.
That.
oh, like speaking of social issues, Black Mirror is back with a new season.
I hadn't started it yet. Did you start it?
Yeah, I've seen about half of the episodes, and they're good. They're really good.
What's the name of it?
Black Mirror. Black Mirror is the modern version of Twilight Zone, where every story it's a bunch of self-contained stories. And each episode.
What distribution network can you watch it on? Because I got Amazon, Apple.
It's Netflix. It's freaking Netflix.
I have Netflix here too.
But every story involves the impact of high tech, new tech on people, and it's usually not in a good way.
Really? Okay. Well, I mean, one of the important things I think about media is trying to find out what is good. In other words, what's good to watch. There was one I saw, the Ladies' Companion, and I don't know which distribution. I think it's on Netflix, but I'm not sure because we got it on Movie Star.
I think it's on Netflix.
Okay, but if you haven't seen The Ladies' Companion, it is worth seeing. It is really very well written. It takes place in Madrid in the 1800s. It really is. It was done in Spanish, but they dub it in English, and they do a great job today. But A Ladies' Companion is actually worth taking a look at if you haven't seen that yet.
All right, I'm going to plug Black Mirror again, because Black Mirror gets top performers. Chris O'Dowd, the one I just watched was Paul Giamatti. And the special effects are great. It never looks cheesy. It's just a quality show.
Yeah, speaking of quality shows and everything like that, because you mentioned this earlier, Nick, and you said that you are a fan, and it used to be a big part of the North Carolina community, and particularly the Durham community. There is a Sundance-like film festival called Full Frame. They concluded, I believe it was last week, and everything along those lines. And they had some films that won awards, because they do give out awards. They give 9 awards for a combined $45,000 in cash prizes. And among the winners was a film about the farm community called Seeds. And it was written by Brittany Shine. And I'm trying to get Brittany Shine to come and talk about on this network, where she did a portrait of a centennial farmer in the geographical South. So this was a narrative film examining the decline of generational Black farmers and the significance of owning land and everything like that. And there was also one called Perfect Neighbor, and then a short that was called Perfectly a Strangeness and everything like that. And then there was another one that was called Come See Me in the Good Light and The Devil is Busy. So those were some of the other winners that existed. And so, like I said, they've got a number of winners, including one called The Other Side of the Mountain and everything like that. And I'm trying to get some of these folks to come on the shows, including one that dealt with human rights called Speak and everything like that, which it examined a significant human rights issue in the United States. So they deal with a lot of issues, kind of like that issue-oriented stuff. So sometimes they are documentaries that do it and everything like that in that space. So definitely there's some great ones that folks might want to check out, and who knows, we might get some of the filmmakers to come on to this network and everything like that. But I just wanted y'all's take on, as you just said, the importance of documentaries.
I've got a recommendation. Errol Morris. Look for anything by the documentarian Errol Morris.
Oh yeah. Hey, speaking of good producer and directors, I saw one by Frank Capra, or Carp, or whatever his name is. Anyway, he did It's a Wonderful Life, and he did another one that doesn't get much love. In other words, like Waiting to Die or something like that. And anyway, it was kind of like the same theme: rich people greedy, taking a lot of money, screwing poor people. It's fun to watch. We're rich people being greedy. But now I don't have to watch it anymore because I kind of live that whole theme, so I do understand it. And I have friends like Shaquille who kind of like show me how this is done. So, but it's fun to watch. In other words, there's always, in this case, Lionel Barrymore was actually the hero, he was the one that was for the people. And then I think it was Arnold who was the bad guy, and he was the rich guy who was driving these poor people into the dirt for his profits. I mean, those stories.
Speaking of people driving people into the dirt,
every day in America.
Here, along those lines. But I was going to get to the other major news story in the media, and hear Shaquille's thoughts around this. But one of the people that Trump has targeted is CBS. He says he wants to have them pay some fines and everything because of their coverage, partially of the Zelensky meeting and some other things that were going on and everything. But I just wanted everybody on the panel's take on Trump versus CBS. He has filed a lawsuit against CBS. Is this a rightful lawsuit? And what are our
let me give the specific background. Please. So before the election, CBS ran an interview with Kamala Harris, and Trump said it was edited deceptively. Now, most things that end up on TV get edited in some way. He's saying that they edited hers in order to make her look better. And he's suing them over this for $20 billion. Now he's threatening another multi-billion-dollar lawsuit after CBS last night did a report on the annexation threats against Greenland and the U.S.'s involvement in Russia-Ukraine. He didn't like their reporting. He wants to sue them again and have the FTC pull CBS's broadcast license.
Whoa. Okay. Has that? I'm looking for the lawsuit right now as we speak, because this could be very exciting. Has the suit been filed yet?
Yeah, it was. It's been going on, but lawsuits take a while.
I know that, but I'm just curious. I'll look at a copy of the complaint. And it says CBS appears poised to settle Trump lawsuit over 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? See, they're going to settle. That's no fun.
No,
what's really fun is going to trial, going all in, baby. Filing counter complaints and fighting like a dog. Okay, but that's not how corporate America does it. They settle.
But let me back you up on that. That even that I've been involved. I have sued one entity, and it cost me a ton of money and time. But one thing, and I got my ass handed to me. But one thing I enjoyed was how annoyed it made the opposition. That
it does.
If you don't win, you're a pain in their ass.
Well, if you know what you're doing, you can't.
Well, speaking of pain in the ass, and this comes down to the
court
as well. This comes down to the court as well, and I know Kill would love this just as much as he probably loved the things around CBS and all along those lines. But apparently earlier today, the U.S. is arguing. They went to court on Monday in an antitrust trial, focusing on the whole notion of who owns Instagram and WhatsApp and everything. So they are arguing that Meta has built a social media monopoly, and they're saying that this case could reshape the business in that sense, because they do have Meta owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and a number of other outlets as well. So what is our thoughts around this notion of a social media monopoly, and will this change the media landscape to some degree, particularly in social media and everything, if they win this particular antitrust trial? And Nick,
let me just make a comment first on the CBS case. It's pretty clear, I think, to anybody who looks at it rationally, that the interview with Kamala Harris was definitely edited in order to make her look better. And I don't think that anybody other than Jatovia could make the argument that it wasn't edited that way. The media around the world, but especially in the United States, is extremely biased. Fox and right-wing media is extremely biased towards the right, and will always try to make the left look, terrible and incompetent and spendthrift. And left-wing media will always try and make their own side look really great and flowerful, fluffy and they're the lovely people, and they're all about love and inclusion, and the right are these sort of mean-spirited, nasty people. That's always the case. But I think that that the CBS interview, it was very, very clear that Kamala Harris's answer was edited. And when they did finally release the unedited portion of it, I think most people looked at that and thought, well, yeah, I mean, they edited it to make her look better. I think that's very, very clear. As for breaking up big companies like Meta, look, I'm not sure what difference it'll make. I like to see, multiple companies competing in the same space because it makes for great trading when you're trading their stocks. But, if you have a look at Standard Oil, once Standard Oil was broken up into those 5 major companies, essentially operated as a cartel. And I would tend to think that you'll probably find the same thing would happen if you start to break up some of the bigger tech companies.
Just
Toby, come on, Abby.
Yeah.
Come on, Toby. Get those gloves on. Get those gloves on.
If I can talk, I will.
Okay,
So,
well, you
just
just
to point out the footage that was unedited, I can actually bring it up right now. What ended up happening is he asked the question, and then she began to answer. A child came in the room. They had to break. Then they had to come back. I've got the unedited footage. But also the irony of that comment is the fact that Fox does the same thing with Trump, exact same thing. But the thing is, it's not to make Trump look better. Well, actually, in a roundabout way, you can say that. But no, they just chop out pieces. It's a normal interview process for anybody who's been in an interview. Matter of fact, I was just in one just recently, and they're going to do the same thing with my interview that they did with the people, the same thing they did with Kamala Harris. So the argument itself is ridiculous. It is a partisan argument because it keeps the base in line. It's the same. It's the reason why people come back and say, oh, well, Trump is doing the right thing. No, it's just this is what he's doing. The scary piece about it is that he is bullying the media because the reason they have to settle, you don't have the money to go up against him at this moment because he's using the federal government to sue these individuals. So you don't have the money. You don't have the
well, how do you think the rest of us feel when the government does it to small business owners?
So he's bullying these media companies so he can say and do whatever he wants without being challenged. That's why
I do get to go to quite many press rooms, and I get to go into some of the private interviews, and that is standard procedure and practice in many cases is to edit them. I've saw many of Trump's interviews with Sean Hannity, where Sean Hannity had to ask him the same question 3 or 4 times, and then finally say, please just focus and answer the question. Okay. And then I got to see the whole stream, but then when they finished and cut it, it was just the question. But you were beginning to think that even I think Sean was too. God, this guy has lost his mind. But maybe it's the fact that he just gets interviewed all the time. But they do edit. And to say that they edited something to make her look better and not him, that's not as they added everyone's. They added everyone's.
I think that you have to put this into context, right? The guy gets shot, right, at a rally in Pennsylvania, and the reports come out.
Miraculously heals like he never got shot.
They edited his ear. It looks
sorry,
I'm
sure I was halfway through saying something.
Hold on a second. Let Shaquille finish. He was making a point.
I didn't see a scar on his ear. Just kidding.
Shaquille.
He gets shot, and the reports that come out, not just in the US, by the way, UK media, some Australian media, reported he fell after being startled by a loud noise and things like that. I mean, the amount of bias that there is in American media, the fact remains, you guys can make all the excuses you like. The fact remains that US media is the least trusted of any Western media in any Western country. That's not a good thing. And it's closely followed by the UK. That's not a good thing, right? People should be able to trust their media. Now, I'm not just picking on the left media. I acknowledged in my response before about CBS, I acknowledged about what Fox News and right-wing media does. I totally acknowledge that, okay? I think that people should expect their media to be a little bit more objective. And this is an example, like you guys have used examples of Donald Trump and how he's treated by Fox. The Kamala Harris interview with CBS is an example of that kind of bias. Now, as for the comment that, oh, well, he's using government money, which is virtually unlimited against these, corporations. Well, yeah, I mean, that's how small business owners feel. That's why I've been saying the whole 5 years I've been coming onto this network that small businesses struggle when regulatory agencies and prosecutors find novel ways to prosecute them, and they've got unlimited amounts of money to do it. So you're the side that wants to have more government controlling more of our lives, not my side.
You're changing the topic. Now let's get back to the topic.
Wait, let me say a quick thing.
Well, no, I'm not changing the topic at all because you're complaining about the overuse of government power by Donald Trump. Well, if that's your complaint, join my side of politics, champ, because you're the one that wants more government control over our lives.
Let Rick go because I was going to jump in.
Right. So yeah, our media is not trusted, and in some cases isn't trustworthy. I don't think Trump suing the media is going to clean up the media. But a few minutes ago, I mentioned the documentarian Errol Morris. I sat down for a 10.5-hour interview with him that was turned into an hour interview. So obviously they had to do some frickin' editing. All right, and now a question for Jacoby. Whose kid was it walking into the Kamala Harris interview? Did she have a kid ready to deploy if a question went wrong?
No, it didn't walk into the interview. It was in the background. I've got the interview and all the other stuff, the unedited interview.
But whose kid?
It was hers. They were at her house. So again, to get back to what Shaq was saying real quick, Shaq, you said that you saw some media outlet, random media outlet, that put out after the assassination attempt that, oh, he fell because of a loud noise. I would like for you to produce that, because absolutely nowhere I saw, and I'm talking about right wing, left wing, center, middle, whatever, everybody talked about the assassination attempt for months. And then when the other one for months. So again, when you're saying
you completely misquote what I'm saying.
We have an issue right now. You bring up these random accounts that you say you saw, and this is the way it is, when nobody else sees that. Nobody else saw that. It was months on end that we saw about the assassination.
Let me respond.
Trump took that, moved the Obama photo, which he has every right to do, and put up the Trump photo of the assassination attempt, which became the calling card for that actual campaign. So for you to argue that, oh, some random place put up this, so that is what the media always does. What random place? Please produce that. And can you please, because I want a fact check on that. Can you please tell me where you saw that? If you cannot, then I cannot trust you, who is in the media, to tell me the truth.
Have you finished? So I didn't say that media, I didn't say random media either, by the way. But I didn't say media described it that way for months and months. I said in the immediate aftermath of the assassination attempt. Okay, well, CNN did it. CNN did it. MSNBC
they actually went straight to an assassination attempt. I was watching it.
That's not
you
true.
Cannot tell me what I was watching. So please give me someone. Show me. We can look anywhere on there, because what you're doing right now is gaslighting. And
that's not
you when you're gaslighting.
Toby, that's not true, because we actually had a Media Mondays show straight after this.
Yes.
And if you go back and have a look at that Media Mondays show, we actually discussed
the assassination attempt. You did not at any point say, oh, well, CNN said it was a loud noise. Again, you're gaslighting. Tell me a place.
It's hard for me to gaslight if I can't speak. We discussed this on the following Media Mondays show, that for the first, period of time after the assassination attempt, that these were the initial reports that came out. And you actually said to me, okay, Jacoby, if you're going to keep talking over me, you might as well. I'll mute myself. You go.
I can bring up that YouTube. Shaq, the problem, what you're doing, again, you're lying. You're gaslighting. You're saying, oh, there's the assassination attempt, but the media was pointing this out. No, the media did not. They could not say that, oh, well, it was an assassination attempt. It was really just a loud noise and he fell. No, everywhere reported it. Everywhere talked about the blood. Everywhere talked about them escorting him out. Everywhere. even us. You never brought up anything about, hey, this is the loud noise thing. Oh, I saw that somewhere. You never said that day. The thing is, this is where the gaslighting and being dishonest comes into play. And this is why I'm pushing back so hard against you.
Very hard for you to call me being dishonest if you won't even let me speak, mate.
And lie.
Now I'm a liar. Very hard for you to make that accusation if you won't even let me speak or finish my sentences, right? You are misquoting what I've said. Now, in the immediate aftermath of that assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, that is what was reported. We had a show about it. We actually discussed it on our own show in relation to how media initially covered it. Now, I am not suggesting that media continued to cover it that way for the months afterwards. But then there was speculation in the coming weeks afterwards, or the weeks following that event, that he wasn't really shot at. That it wasn't really a bullet that had grazed his ear. It was actually the teleprompters and debris from the teleprompters and all these sorts of things. There were all these sorts of theories. But the truth of the matter is that initially, when it first happened, the initial reports that came out from CNN, MSNBC, CBS, and many of the others was that he fell off the stage, or he was startled by a loud noise, or something like that. That is what was initially. But well, you know what, Jacoby? If it's not true, I'll tell you what. If it's not true, let me finish. If it's not true, Jacoby, let me finish, please. Jacoby, let me finish, please.
That happened.
Could you please let me finish?
Then you point out, yes, the conspiracy theories, even
Could you let me finish,
was joking about the conspiracy theories just a little bit ago, if you didn't notice. So that actually started bubbling up afterwards, talking about how, yes, he probably wasn't shot.
If you could let me finish, please. If it's not...
All that conspiracy stuff happened afterwards and still continues now. But the initial response, the initial everything for the months, which became his calling card on that campaign trail, was the fact that it was an assassination attempt. Absolutely nowhere. I noticed how you tried to pigeonhole it now down to Pittsburgh when you said it was outside of the country to start off with. This is why.
What are you talking? I never said anything like that. I never said anything like that. I didn't say Pittsburgh. I never said anything about Pittsburgh. No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
This is why it started.
Come on, you've got to let me say something at some point, Mark. Come on, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
this is why it started.
Because I want to get to another topic, but
before you want to get another topic, which called me a liar, I would like to respond to it.
If you let me finish, Shaquille, I want to hear your response.
Oh, now I'm going to let you finish.
I said I want to hear your response, Shaquille. I didn't say anything about you, Joey. I said you were trying to respond to it.
Thank you. Firstly, I didn't nail it down to just Pittsburgh. What I said was in the immediate time after the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. The reason why I specified Pennsylvania is because I was differentiating it from the other assassination attempt that happened at Mar-a-Lago, or Florida, wherever it was. Now, secondly, yes, that was the initial report. I didn't say that was a report for the weeks after or for the months after. I said that those were the initial reports that came out, and we discussed it. Now, if you think that I'm a liar, right? If you think that I am misquoting or misrepresenting what mainstream media reported at that time, I'll tell you what, right? I'm not that big a person. I'll be in the United States reasonably soon. Take this video, send it to their lawyers, and have them sue me for defamation.
No, how about this, Shaq? How about this? Let's do the easy part. You said these initial reports. The stuff doesn't delete off the internet. You can find it right now. You made a claim.
But you're the king of Googling, not me. I'm on my phone.
Attempt.
But you seem to have no interest in Googling anything else. You like to show off your Googling skills. Go for it.
Shaquille, as I stated, and I will continue to state, because I have proof. Again, the initial reports, every single one, because he fell to the ground, had blood on the ear, everything else, they rushed him out. Every initial report, CNN, Fox News, Newsmax, CBS, so on and so forth, all pointed out an assassination attempt. They all then talked about the fireman who was shot and killed that day. But then that began to go by the wayside because then it became the assassination attempt. Again, everything was about the assassination attempt. Absolutely nowhere said, ooh, he just fell. There was a loud noise. Absolutely nowhere had that initial report. Even when we talked about it on the next day on this channel here, nobody on this channel said, "Oh, he just fell." That's what they were saying at the beginning. Nowhere was saying that.
Yeah, well, that's look. I don't agree with you, and our viewers can go and fact check us, Toby. So
now, again, I will agree. Factually speaking, conspiracy theories are there. They started to really bubble up quickly. That the initial reports happened about these.
Right, just have you've said your point. I don't agree with you. Let our audience fact check us.
Wild now. There have been plenty of conspiracy videos that have been made talking about his ear now. So we're on the same page, except for you starting out saying the initial reports were a lie, or the initial reports where he fell. Nowhere said that. Absolutely nowhere said that.
All right. Well, you've said your point like really emphatically. I emphatically disagree with you. You're the one that is so good at being able to look things up on the internet, so you go for it.
Incorrect.
And in the meantime, our audience has got. Are you still speaking over me? For somebody who complains so much about being interrupted, our audience is more than welcome to fact check us themselves. Now, if you really want me to, because I'm sitting here on my phone, if you really want me to go and get it, I can. But I know exactly what happened. We talked about it at the time. And if you want to try and sit there and call me a liar and a gaslighter and all the other names that you want to try and call me, that's up to you, mate. But everybody else can fact check it.
Here's the deal. If you find those reports, send them. I mean, you got time now. You always say you're on your phone and you got your computer right to the side. But if you find those reports,
I don't have my computer right to the side because, as you know, I'm traveling.
If you prove me wrong, I will fully apologize. Shaq, you were right. You were so right. I will fully apologize. But
just tell me, what makes you think that you are an important enough part of my life that an apology from you is going to make one little tiny iota of difference? Or the people that tune in, or the people that tune in, right, who watch you, they're going to be your fans no matter what. The people that tune in who watch me, they're going to be my fans no matter what. Do you really think that anybody cares about an apology from you? You're wrong. You've called me a liar and a gaslighter. Yep. Why don't you look it up your bloody self? Because it's not hard to find.
Nope. Because everybody knows that you are lying on that. You are gaslighting.
You know what everybody knows. You know what everybody knows.
No, hold on a second. Hold on. Because I was going to get to that. I was going to get to that other topic that I want to get to, which is actually in both of your lanes and everything. I was hoping that Rick was going to still be here, but he had to bail. But LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman last year created a AI version of himself and posted a Q&A conversation with Reid AI and everything. Huh?
Rick's back. He's sitting backstage.
I didn't know. I was looking at the news stories. I didn't know that Rick was back. I don't see Rick back. No, Rick's not back. So Rick's not back. Yeah, Nick was backstage and everything. But they are saying that we're on the cusp of an AI revolution that will transform everything we read, view, and listen to, from academic papers to podcasts and videos, into intelligent, interactive media. So they're saying media powerhouses. I know Kim's big into TikTok. From TikTok and Spotify to the New York Times and Wall Street Journal will either evolve or devolve as AI enables us to interact with our media in real time. So we'll interrupt media, we'll interrogate it, kind of like what y'all were doing with each other, dispute it, and even modify it in real time. And talking heads will respond to us individually, and broadcasting will become dialogue mediated by AI. So what is y'all's thoughts around this notion of us all being engaged in this AI conversation and everything along those lines? I know that even some of what Kim has been doing, and Ricky is back, I see him now, and everything. But what is our thoughts around this notion of AI being in such a position that literally, like I said, I used to be a fan of Walter Cronkite, and could you imagine doing AI conversations with Walter Cronkite if he was still living and everything like that? So what is our take on this notion of AI influencing our media?
So we were talking about this, you and I and Lance and we were talking about this last night. So everybody here is among a generation that will not have grown up with AI all the time. The millennials were the first generation to grow up with internet all the time. And the people born, in 2015 and later will have AI all the time. They'll find it completely natural that it will be in everything. We were talking about Lana Del Rey being a great performer. And then the Lana Del Reys of the future will be augmented with AI. They will use, they will help, AI will help them write their lyrics, write their music, and everybody will be like,
they pretty much do that now with auto-tune and everything else anyway. Mark, I've just sent you a couple of screenshots to your WhatsApp. Could you share those screenshots onto the screen, please?
If I can do it. I don't have my phone right in front of me, but I can see if I can get the phone.
As you share the screenshots, I didn't see any coverage of Trump falling, but I didn't pay that much attention. And I'm not.
Rick, we talked about.
But wait a second. That everybody knows, in America at least, that when there's an incident, the Secret Service tackles the president. So I just assumed that's what happened. There were bullets flying. There's a picture of not the bullet that hit Trump, but a different bullet. There's a great picture of Trump's head, and then there's a bullet whipping past his head. I assumed, and I did, that the Secret Service does what it does. It took him down. I didn't think.
Okay, but Rick, I didn't say that in the days and the weeks and the months. I said the initial reports that we got. The initial reports were that Trump was startled by loud bangs. The Secret Service whisked him off because of loud noises. He fell because of after being startled by a loud noise. These were the initial reports that came out. Okay. Now, clearly, they didn't last for that long because they had to correct the record at some point. But the initial reports that came out, and they didn't just come out in the US, those were the initial reports that were reported by UK media. It was the initial reports that were reported by Australian media. All right. And if anybody doesn't believe me, all you got to do is do this. Go to Google and just type in Trump startled by loud bangs, right? And you'll find a whole heap of articles that originally came out making that claim. So why Jacoby wants to call me a liar?
That's not. Hold on. That's not necessarily a conspiracy. It could be just initial reports getting it wrong. That we didn't know about the.
Yes, Rick, I agree. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, it could be just the initial reports getting it wrong or playing it safe. But why does Jacoby need to say that those reports never came out at all?
Hold on a second, because I did get what he sent me and everything, and I'll just repeat it because.
Mark, I'll drop it into the chat window if you want to share it on your computer. I dropped the Google link into the chat window.
Okay.
And Jacoby's just going to sit there and laugh as if, he'll come up with some excuse for it.
I've actually got an article here. I've got an article here for you, Shaq. Got an article. Let's see what the actual article says, though. See, this is, Google works. Google works.
So
Trump
we didn't know about the. We didn't initially know about
loud noise that startles former president in the crowd. He's getting tackled on stage. They're showing. Former President Donald Trump was rushed off stage after loud popping sounds rang out as he was speaking to his supporters in Pennsylvania. Trump was removed from the site by Secret Service with his fist raised after noises. Trump reached for his ear when the noises happened. He appeared to have blood on his ear and cheek as he left the stage. People began screaming. Oh, so you didn't read the article. You just went with the whole top. So it sounds like what the problem is you don't read articles.
It sounds like, Jacoby, what the problem is that you don't see the edited time, right? So they release an initial article, then they go back and they edit that article multiple times. And it sounds like you obviously either don't understand that or you're doing exactly what you, with glee, accused me of doing, which is lying and gaslighting. I mean, that's what really happened, hey?
So I want to talk about another piece of ancient history for just a second that I found last night while I was arguing with Lance. So,
it's okay that Donald Trump falls over after being startled, but when Joe Biden, it was the wind that blew him down or up the stairs. That's why he fell over 3 times.
I want to talk about a Biden theory that I found that makes sense to me. So Biden during the debate was loopy, was not, he was kind of he was not super present. And this doctor had an explanation that is consistent with my experience of old people. But Biden was coming off a cold. The doctor argued that that could have given him delirium. And I've seen it happen with like UTIs. Now, wait, so I'm not defending Biden and the people around him. I'm just offering a possible explanation where you can't have a president where they get a cold or a UTI, a bladder infection, and it makes them loopy. That's not good for a president. So whether like
it must have had a cold for 4 years then, Rick. Seriously.
No, but there are plenty of instances where he makes a speech and he's present. He's not all, he wasn't, that debate was him being about the most lost I've ever seen him. Maybe you can find other clips of him also looking.
But Rick, that's my whole point. That's exactly the point that I'm making. See, I have a slightly different perspective from you guys because I'm not sitting in the United States. So I get to see various media sources from around the world, okay? And it was very, very clear that these sorts of mishaps were happening on a very frequent period, very frequently during the entire period of his presidency. But I'll also remind you, Rick, that you yourself have said previously on a previous shows that when places like the LA Times and different places don't take the same sort of positions that you like, or they appear to be going to the right, you stop watching them. So the fact that you haven't seen, hang on a second, the fact that you haven't seen the same stuff that we've seen should make you think, well, hang on a moment, why is it that the media that I'm trusting to give me information is actually sanitizing the information or giving me information that's misleading? And that's the problem, in my opinion, with US media, with UK media, and to a larger extent now, even some Australian media is beginning to behave that way.
We didn't quit the LA Times. We cut back on it. I found out we were spending $1,400 a year on the LA Times, on a newspaper that's gotten increasingly crappy. So we just cut it down to the weekends.
The point is, Rick, that your impetus for that wasn't the financial aspect. The impetus for it that you had stated was that you're unhappy with the right-wing shift that the LA Times was taking, and you also criticised New York Times. You criticised New York Times polls when they came up with poll results you didn't like. This is the issue. People are deluding themselves. People are deluding themselves and allowing media to lie to them, and then when somebody actually points it out, that person ends up becoming your enemy. All right. I don't really care. I don't live in America. What's happening with your education system and everything else doesn't really affect me that much. But I can tell you how it is. And if through my eyes, this is how it is. You're being lied to constantly.
All right, but okay, but we didn't quit the LA Times. We found a cheaper way to consume it. We went to weekends only. We get a physical paper on Saturday and Sunday. The other 5 days a week, our subscription lets us read the whole paper on our phones for $300 a year instead of $1,400. And yeah, initially I was pissed off that the paper gets thinner and thinner. It's 24 pages some days, and yeah, they hired some columnists. But anyway, we didn't quit them. We just kind of.
But you're still skirting around my point. The point is that, and I'm not just picking on you, I find this around the world, that people tend to gravitate towards the media sources that back up their already held beliefs. And what we're seeing is that people tend not to fully see what other people are seeing. And so what ends up happening is that somebody like me says, well, actually, hang on, there was some bias in this report. People like to tell you, go, oh, no, that can't possibly be the case. No. It is the case.
Hold on. Wait. Let me say, hold on. That I gravitate, now I'm really lazy. I go to a single source, which is at the intersection of being reliable as like a news provider and convenient, and that's Drudge. Now, Drudge used to make me crazy. It moved towards the center. Now it's pretty centered. I think it offers a good assortment. And then my wife tells me I'm missing out on a lot of news because I'm lazy, and she has different sources.
So what you're saying, Shaq, is very, very true for everybody, including yourself. We all find and gravitate towards areas that we try and find that backs up or helps us out in not only our argument, but our values that we consider. We all do that. And the big thing is what you're speaking about. Yes, we should all, including yourself, get outside of the bubble, because when we get in our zones and get stuck in our bubble, we miss a lot that is out there.
I'm not in a bubble. I'm not in a bubble.
Jack,
what do I care what's happening to you?
Let me point out. Yes, you are. And
what bubble am I in?
You do, as much as you don't want to believe it, you do.
What bubble am I in? What bubble am I in? The Republican bubble? Is that the claim that you're making?
Shaq, you do lean conservative in a lot of ways. You do.
In what ways? Name something.
In a lot of ways.
Name something I'm conservative on. Shaq, no, seriously, name something I'm conservative on.
Name something that you lean more towards what Trump is doing or what the MAGA world is doing.
Trump's not conservative. Trump's not a conservative. Elon Musk is certainly not a conservative.
So you don't think any of the policies that they're putting out or that they have put out are conservative?
I didn't say that. I didn't. What I said was he himself is not a conservative.
You're proving my point right now. Because when you sit there and want to say that, oh, well, it's not really conservative, so even if I agree with him, I'm okay. No, I mean, he puts out some conservative policies. He really does. Yes, I agree with you. He tries to be this populist, which he's not. He tries to be this conservative, which on some of the ways he's not. Same thing with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is now leaning into the conservative in this mindset, how he's doing. So again, we all do it. It is a natural thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just that what we do as human beings. And when we fall into these traps, sometimes we need to get out of our bubble, which I agree with what you're saying. I don't know what
you're just tell me. I don't lean conservative at all.
I do it as well as Rick does it, as well as Mark does it. We all do it. It's just being able to admit that you do it. That's when we, as people, are able to venture out of that bubble. But you don't want to agree with that because you want to go to CPAC, who you said that has said that has invited you to speak. Oh, well, CPAC isn't conservative. Turning Point Australia, which was a spinoff of Turning Point USA. Oh, that's not conservative at all. But these are the places that you go.
Yeah, right. Okay. So let me respond. Let me respond. Now, firstly, I've never been invited to speak at CPAC. I was invited to CPAC, but so
Conservative Political Action Committee. It's got conservative in the name.
Turning Point Australia. Yes, Turning Point Australia is conservative, but not all of the guests that show up on their show are conservative.
I get that.
Right?
Yeah,
if I was invited onto CNN, does that all of a sudden make me a lefty?
Nope.
Okay. Nope. I was I've been involved in the Chamber of Commerce, as you know. I represent or have represented small businesses, and I've been a small business owner myself. Okay. So the main thing I advocate for is more assistance for small business owners and lower regulations. Now, that puts me on the centre right, okay? It doesn't put me on the conservative side of the equation. It puts me on the centre right side of the equation, which is fairly moderate. And moderate lefties and moderate righties pretty much get along because the positions that they have are pretty similar, okay? What you want to do is every time I point out the blatant hypocrisy of your extremely progressive positions, you all of a sudden respond to that by saying, well, only a conservative could possibly call out the ridiculousness of seeing biological males in girls' sports or, trans in kids and putting them on puberty blockers and all that. Oh, Shaquille must be a conservative. All right, it's ridiculous, and I notice how you don't really want to respond to the fact you've picked one article that was edited, and you don't want to respond to the fact that all of that whole big list of articles originally reported that he was startled by loud noises. Right, you don't really want to respond to that. But to listen to you before, no such report ever came out. That's what you said. No such report ever came out.
Everything talks about a fireman dying. It's just there, but you want to ignore it.
Because it's been edited. You can even see the edit timestamp. This article was edited at such and such a time and such a date.
Right,
come on,
seriously. Let me get a word in. You guys are arguing about trivia. I Googled based on Trump really isn't conservative as much as he's a package of policies that he likes and that he thinks will get out the base. And so I Googled who was the last truly conservative president, and Google threw back at me Bush,
Reagan, Bush.
Reagan, Calvin Coolidge, and Jimmy Carter, because we had a guest on this show who spent an hour. He wrote a book about how conservative Carter's fiscal policies were, and they opened the door to Reagan. And in a lot of ways, he was in lockstep with Reagan, which was totally surprising to me. But
I'm not sure I'd agree with that. But obviously, the Iran Contra issue, torpedoed the late Carter's presidency. But look, we have obviously got a diverse set of opinions around the world on all sorts of political issues. What somebody like Donald Trump has done is he's managed to get, I think, a very wide tent of people. Okay. The Democrats haven't done that, and Republicans prior to him hadn't done that. Okay. And that's why, Jatov, you can shake your head. What exactly is the approval rate right now of Democrats? It's like 20% or something. It's like amongst the lowest I've ever seen them at. It's ridiculous. Right? So what you've seen is a lot of disaffected Democrats that have left the Democrats and switched over to the Republican Party, right? Now, will they stay? Probably not. This is what we saw under Brexit in the UK. We saw a lot of disaffected Labour Party people that came across to the Tories and have now gone back, all right? And that's probably what I expect you will see over the next 10 or 15 years happen in the United States.
No, you won't, because let me explain why.
Oh, what are you, a clairvoyant?
Let me explain why to you, okay? As you pointed out, in this election, for example, you want to talk about disenfranchised Democrats and blah, 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 blah. That's not really happening. You got...
it's not happening, dude. You just lost every swing state, the Senate, the House, the popular vote, the Supreme Court.
Listen, Shaq, it's not happening. For example, you want to talk about the disenfranchised Democrats. The ones that you can bring up are RFK, who was supposedly a Democrat, but Democrats didn't really claim him because he was a crazy dude who was a conspiracy.
Really? Kennedy wasn't claimed by the Democrats prior to him making some comments that they no longer agreed with after being lobbied by Big Sugar.
This is where, again, your conservative values going on these places like CPAC and Turning Point USA and giving these talking points, that shows that that's where you lean. So let me explain to you again on the dealing with just coming out of one camp. I'm talking about looking at all the information. For example, in terms of your disenfranchised Democrats, there were people who were upset at the Gaza war over what was going on with Biden. That was a problem. And Biden lost those individuals. Yes, they voted for Trump. You know what? They're now regretting their vote because now Trump is talking about genocide.
Here we go. Here we go again. The Democrat talking point at the moment is that all of these Trump voters regret their votes. They don't regret their votes because Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do, unlike the guy that you guys elected back in 2020.
That's all I'm trying to get out.
Hold on. Let me throw a bunch of numbers at you in the closing minutes.
I know.
Hold on.
What you got?
I have poll results that say nobody's doing very well. The Democrats, by a narrow margin, are doing the worst. Let's do them. This is strong. UMass Amherst poll that just came out today or yesterday. I'm adding strongly approve and somewhat approve together. Trump gets 44%, Congress 29%, Supreme Court 38%, Dems tie Congress 29%, Republicans 41%, Pete Hegseth 32%.
But we're not going to have time to go through those numbers. Let the Toby finish what he wants to say.
Everybody's pissed at everything.
Yes, and the country,
with good reason.
The country right now is angry. I'm not saying the Democrats are doing better. I'm telling you right now, when you're talking about disenfranchised Democrats going to go over to Trump, that's not happening. Everybody's mad right now. And
no, I'm not.
We only got a minute or so left. Let me finish this. And
you're going to take the whole minute?
No, I'm not. If you keep interrupting me, I will. So what I'm trying to point out, because I'm trying to agree with and show that Rick's polls are spot on. People are mad. People are leaving both parties. People are leaving everywhere. The Venezuelans who voted for the Hispanics who voted for Trump, who went in for, what was it, 50 some odd percent, 50, 60%, are leaving Trump because of his deportation policies. They are not liking that. So they're not going to Democrat. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying they're leaving Trump. And all these places are leaving Trump. So you're not having this mass exodus of Democrats. Yay, we're going to Trump. It's not happening. Nobody's going anywhere.
Okay. All right. So what you've done is
and Rick just proved it based on his.
Okay, can I respond? We've got 30 seconds. What you've done is you've actually changed the goalposts of that conversation halfway through it. We were talking about what caused Trump to win the last election, and then you start talking about Democrats no longer leaving. All right. And what you're doing as well is you're repeating this Democrat talking point that the people that voted for Trump are unhappy and they're angry at him and they're really upset. No, they're not. You know why they're not? Because he's doing exactly what he promised he was going to do. Unlike the guy that you supposedly elected in 2020, this guy, Donald Trump, is actually doing what he said he was going to do. He is keeping his promises to the best of his ability.
Because what I say we're going to do is we're going to leave it till next week because we're past the hour. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.